It is 12:01, and we're going to call the special meeting of the Electric Utility Board meeting to order.
It's 12:01. I'd like to call the Lubbock City Council to order in a special meeting. I would note that we have 3 members in the chambers and at least 1 online. We expect to have 2 joining us via Zoom. Mr. Christian's on right now, and I think Ms. Patterson-Harris will be joining us shortly.
Thank you, Mayor. Brings us to item 2, public comment. Do we have anyone signed up today to speak?
We do not have anyone signed up.
And no emails? Okay. That will take us to item 3. We're now recessing into executive session in accordance with VTCA Government Code 551.086 on competitive matters of LP&L and VTCA Government Code 551.071, seeking advice of and consultation with Lubbock Power and Light's attorneys on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with Chapter 551 of the Government Code, and seeking advice of its attorneys about pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers. The UB is now in exec. Mayor.
It's 12:03. Lubbock City Council will recess to executive session for the purpose of consulting with city staff regarding competitive matters of the public power utilities under section 551.086 of the Texas Government Code, and to discuss pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers, and to hold consultation with attorneys under section 551.071 of that same Texas Government Code. Lubbock City Council is in executive session.
Okay. It is 12:40, and the EB is now reconvening back into open session. That brings up item 5, and entertain a motion to bring that to the floor.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
move that we adopt the resolution under item 5.
Second. All right. Item 5 is consider resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Utilities to execute and file for and on behalf of the City of Lubbock, acting by and through Lubbock Power and Light, all pleadings, reports, studies, or other filings at the Electric Reliability Council of Texas and or the Public Utility Commission of Texas towards migration of the remaining portion of LP&L's load to ERCOT, and to present testimony and otherwise provide support before ERCOT and or the PUC related to the same. Mr. McCullough, I'll let you discuss that.
Mr. Chairman, if you would permit me, I'd like to go through a little history on this quickly.
Mr. McCullough, before you do that, I'd like to call the Lubbock City Council back into session. We've returned from executive session. It's 12:42.
Hey, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So this events leading to today's recommended action started in 2014. Some of you will remember these events. In 2014, we had a contract, total requirements contract with SPS that was due to expire at May 31st, 2019. And there was a lot of, that contract could not be renewed. And so there was an effort to replace that power supply with something different. So we issued a request for proposal, and RFP, this version of the RFP allowed for offers that could be delivered in ERCOT. So in 2015, our negotiations with the finalists failed, and that RFP was pulled down. Late that year in 2015, the Electric Utility Board passed another resolution very similar to the one you're working on today that directed the staff to move the 70% of our load, or the affected load, into ERCOT. And so that October 20th, 2015 is when this all officially began, what will happen this weekend. So in 2016, PUC opened the project, the original project, which was really just a study to look at the issues related to our integration. We argued for a 1-step process. They ultimately selected a 2-step process, which required first, approval of the need and a cost-benefit analysis, and then doing the CCNs at a later date. So that's the direction we went. ERCOT and SPP filed memos, and we decided in November of 2016 to engage GDS Associates and DNVGL engineering firm to do studies of the integration and filed those at the PUC later on. Additional work was done, but in September of 2017, we filed our application to permit us to connect to ERCOT. PUC assigned that docket 47576. They established preliminary orders on September 28th of 2017, agreed to hear the case, which we had requested, and then they set the hearing for January 17th and 18th of 2018. In January of 2018, the City Council and the Board as well passed resolutions memorializing the city's intent to carefully research the best way to transition our customer load to retail competition. We had the hearing on the merits in January 17th, and we reached settlement with the interveners in that case, and the commission approved that order in March 8th of 2018. So that really started the clock working on getting CCNs, getting construction activities done. So in August of that year, the Electric Utility Board approved a participation agreement with Sharyland, and the City Council approved it as well. The first CCN was filed in September of that year. We started the transition to customer choice study with Navigant in September of that year. And then there was other CCN cases filed. In October of 2018, we got word that Sharyland was going to sell their assets to Encore. Importantly, Encore agreed to honor the terms of the participation agreement. And so we, since that deal concluded, we have been working very closely with Encore on getting the facilities constructed. So in 2019, moving forward, we hired electric power engineers to help us with all the ERCOT activities that had to be done. There was a long list of things that we had to do to integrate with ERCOT from their standpoint. They developed an action plan and a timeline, and all of those activities have been completed now. So in 2020, we filed an application with the Texas Reliability Entity to get certification as a transmission operator. And we worked very hard from that point on and received our certification earlier this month as a transmission operator. So in June of 2020, all 4 CCN applications were completed. So only a year ago were all the CCN applications finalized. Of course, construction had begun earlier than that. We've been reporting on construction, so I'm kind of leaving out that detail. Y'all been getting regular reports on that. In August of last year, we filed a transmission cost of service rate and reached an agreement in principle with the parties in December so that it would establish our initial rates, and then we would come back in September this year and file an interim update to that would include all of the assets. So moving forward to more current history, in April, we completed the voltage conversion. You know, all of our construction projects were completed and did the voltage conversion. That went off very smoothly. It was a kind of a nerve-wracking experience. We switched all of that transmission to 115 kV without any interruptions to service. So I was very happy about that. In May, Encore completed the remaining option 4OW projects, and we received the certification, as I mentioned. Last week and earlier this week, we energized all 4-6 auto transformers, which we now own, and they are soaking, getting ready to, you have to energize them and let them sit there for a while before we put a load on them. So that's what we're doing right now. And then earlier this week, we completed the asset transfer, executed all the paperwork necessary to complete that transaction. So we now own almost $200 million worth of those option 4OW assets, which was the agreement that we reached with Sharyland way back. So I just went through all this, so I won't read all this, but that's a ton of work has been done since 2015 to get to this point. And I wanted to mention that Board and City Council played critical roles, approval and support of the plan, budget and capital improvement, contracts, right-of-way. City worked very closely with us and donated land for substations and transmission right-of-way. And I want to thank the board and the council for your resolve continuing forward after the February events. I know there was some calls to pull back from that, but I appreciate your sticking to the plan. Thank you for your continued support and encouragement. So now, our current status, migration of the affected load is now expected to be complete on or before June 1st, 2021. That's Saturday and Sunday of this weekend is when that will happen. Detailed switching orders have been written, studied, rewritten, and we're final on those now. We've had walkthrough exercises. We're confident that we're prepared for cutover. We appreciate the support of all the city departments that will be out there working with us Saturday and Sunday. They're going to put generators on some of the facilities before cutover and then take them off after we get the load switched over. So been a really good team effort with all the city departments, and we've got an EOC activation Saturday and Sunday of this weekend. Emergency Operations Center will be busy. We'll have hundreds of LP&L and city employees working this weekend on the cutover. Communications with the public has been very good. Matt's had a busy month. He's seen him on TV quite a bit, and so we appreciate the media coverage as well. So after significant study by staff and others, it became clear that opt-in of only a portion of LP&L's load was not practical. There were some limitations to doing it that way. So it is our recommendation that efforts be made to migrate all of our load to ERCOT to facilitate the opportunity for retail choice in a fair and equitable manner. And then if you approve this delegation of authority to start this process, we will begin immediately. There's a couple of other agenda items. There's one other agenda item that you will approve later on that will kind of get that ball rolling. So, any questions?
Questions for Mr. McCullough? Okay, we will take a vote. If all those in favor of passing the resolution, do so by raising your right hand and stating aye. Aye. Opposed by the same? One carries. Mr. Boatman, if you could tell us whether or not you're in favor.
I vote aye. Aye.
Could you raise your right hand if you're in favor, sir?
Aye.
All right. Item 5 passes 9-0. All right, that brings us to item 6. Entertain a motion to bring that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we adopt the resolution in item 6.
Stafford. All right, item 6 is to consider resolution authorizing the chairman of the EUB to execute that certain settlement agreement by and between the city of Lubbock, acting by and through Lubbock Power and Light and South Public Service Company, a New Mexico corporation, regarding that certain master power purchase and sale agreement, the master agreement dated as of November 12, 2009, and that certain transaction agreement of the same date entered into under the master agreement, providing for an early termination of the PPA. Mr. Bertram.
All right, good afternoon. Kind of on the heels of Mr. McCullough's presentation about the move of the 30% of the remaining load into ERCOT, this contract this agreement that you're considering today was one of those last major hurdles that we had to meet that goal of moving the 100% into ERCOT. What this agreement does is it provides for that termination in May of 2023. Until that time, we're going to continue to partner with SPS to have service under that contract for really the next 2 years. They've been a good partner for many, many years, and we'll continue that for 2 additional years. It does provide substantial cost savings to the utility and our customers for a very long time into the future. It also provides a path for both the City Council and the Electric Utility Board to consider an opt-in to the retail choice in the competitive market. It also allows us to begin seeking that approval of the 30%, which you've just approved in the previous item, allows us to go in earnest on that item. So to give you a little bit of background about the partial requirements contract, is an agreement between the Southwestern Public Service Company and LP&L. It was actually entered into in 2009 at the time when we purchased the distribution assets from SPS. It did not become effective until 2019, so about a couple of years ago from right now. And it extends through 2044 as a 25-year total length contract. Again, it covers the 30% portion of the load that is not moving into ERCOT at this time. It provided a capacity obligation of 170 megawatts initially, which increases by 1.2% per year. So by 2044, that's a little over 220 megawatts of capacity that was provided under that contract. Currently, we are paying about $17 million a year for that capacity obligation. And of course, that would grow over time as the system, or as the provision of the 1.2% increased each year, in addition to inflationary pressures. So begin at 17 million and it grew from there. One of the things unique about ERCOT is you don't need a capacity obligation. And so really, if we move all of our customers into ERCOT, there is no need for the capacity contract anyway. Some of our objectives going through this exercise to exit the partial requirements contract was to do that through a negotiated process with SPS in order to secure an exit for us, to allow us to commence with a regulatory process that you just approved, as well as to really ramp up our work on the distribution assets that need to be upgraded to move all of those 30% of our customers over. Again, with all customers in ERCOT by 2023, there is an opportunity for you and the City Council to make retail choice available, subject to resolutions passed by both bodies. So financial implications of this termination, we will pay a $77.5 million lump sum payment to Southwestern Public Service in May of 2023, or whenever we integrate. We're assuming at this point in time, it'll be at the end of May of 2023. So you can see in the graphic at the bottom of this slide that we would anticipate that the annual debt service payments to finance that $77.5 million payment would be about $4.1 million per year. That's a flat level amount over a 30-year period. If you overlay what the cost would have been under the contract, this is an estimated cost. You can see currently we're about $17 million per year, and that grows over time. So you can see the difference kind of visually here of what we would be paying under the contract versus what we'd be paying on annual debt service payments to help finance that one-time payment. What that means for the average customer, and this graph shows what it would do for a residential rate 1 customer. If you look back at last year, I took a 12-month history. The rate for that rate 1 residential customer was just under 5.5 cents for the power component of their bill. And that would include that $17 million annual payment that 5.5 cents would cover. If you remove that $17 million payment and you add back the $4.1 million payment, they would have paid just under 4.9 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's about a little over 0.5 cent savings, or about 10.5% reduction for the rate 1 customers. So that's a pretty substantial reduction in power costs for our customers, and that would continue over many, many years. And actually, the percentage would grow over time as well. So just to kind of highlight some of the key deal terms, and I have some pages listed in here in case you want to look through your document. What it does is the agreement allows the partial requirements contract to terminate upon the integration of the remainder of our load into ERCOT, currently anticipated at May 31, 2023. Again, we'll pay that lump sum payment of the $77.5 million. That is in section 2.2 on page 15 of your agenda book. We also intend to use the lump sum payment as the option. There's also an option to make 6 annual payments, but our preference at this point in time is to make that one lump sum payment as of that integration date. Part of the agreement in section 2.5B is that SPS will make all the filings at FERC that are necessary to implement the agreement. And the next, in section 3.4, they've also agreed to help support our integration filings at the PUCT and at FERC. Also, there's a release of claims under the contract in sections 5.1 and 5.3. We've identified some contracts that would live on after the termination of the partial requirements contract. So we've identified those, and there's some release there. And also, you'll see I've listed some of those agreements that will continue. There's a affluent water contract that will live on. The franchise fee agreement for their certificated area in the city will live on, and then certain easements and crossing agreements will also live on with the termination of the partial requirements contract. So kind of gives you an idea of some of the key matters within that contract. So just to sum up, this is a very important milestone for the history of the city. It allows us to pursue our goal of opting into retail choice if the board and council make that determination at some point in time in the near future. We would be the first city to opt in, voluntarily opt in to retail competition since the market was created in 1999. So it's a historic event actually for the state as well. As you recall, LP&L ratepayers, we get reminded every once in a while of this. There was a form of competition for many, many years that our citizens became accustomed to, and that is a little different than what the form of competition is in ERCOT, but it does allow that competitive spirit back into the city and would allow for customers to have choice going forward. And again, finally, the bullet financially related, the approval does exchange about a $17 million annual payment for about a $4 million annual payment. So almost $13 million annual cost reduction because of that. So again, that's just the caption for the item. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman, and if y'all have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions? Mr. Bertram, any comments? All right, well, then we will vote on this. Item 6. All those in favor do so by raising your right hand, stating aye. Aye. Mr. Boatman, if you're in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Raising your hand. All right, opposed by the same. It carries 9-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bertram. All right, that brings us to final item here, item 7. Entertain a motion there to bring that to the floor, the resolution. Got a motion, need a second? Got a second? All right, item 7, consider a resolution authorizing the Director of Utilities or his designee to execute that certain supplement to engagement letter regarding the transfer of the unaffected load to the Electric Reliability Council of Texas by and between the City of Lubbock, acting by and through Lubbock Power and Light, and Lloyd Gosling, Rochelle, and Townsend, PC. Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. The item before you is a proposed resolution and engagement for Lloyd Gosling to represent the City of Lubbock, acting by and through Lubbock Power and Light before the PUC and SOA as needed for the migration of the remainder of the load. Lloyd Gosling has extensive experience both in PUC items and in ERCOT items, as well as contested cases before the State Office of Administrative Hearings. The EUB has previously approved Lloyd Gosling to represent LP&L both for transmission cost of service cases as well as the integration of the 70% of the load. So they're very familiar with their circumstances. And so they bring to the table the experience and the familiarity with LP&L's particular circumstances to provide efficient representation on this matter. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from Ms. Smith? Anyone? All right, we will vote on item 7. All those in favor do so by raising your right hand, saying aye. Aye. Opposed by the same. Mr. Boatman,
Aye.
if you're in favor, please raise your right hand.
Aye.
Perfect. That item passes 9-0 as well. With no other business, brings us to item 8. We're adjourned. Thank you all.